This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
Welcome back, everybody. She has a connection to the other side, but more than you might even think. Of course, she's a certified psychic medium, and she can connect with those who have passed over, but she's passed over, at least came very close 2 times. We're going to learn more about that, what that was like, how that connected her to the other side, and so much more. This is something that she's been doing decades. She's an author. She's a speaker. She works with so many organizations, nonprofits as well, to help people get closure, connection, and so much more. And she's our professional of the year. Connie Fusella joins us on the program. How are you doing today?
Good, great. How you doing, Steve?
Really good. Wonderful having you back here. You're like, your energy, I said it last time, I gotta say it again. It's just like it's cloudy out right now. I got sunshine on a cloudy day. That's kind of like what it is when you're here. You told us last time we got together that you passed or came close to at least twice. Is it 2 times?
Three times.
3 times.
Yes.
3 times the charm to bring you back.
Times the charm, right?
Wow. Wow.
Hopefully I'm not a cat.
Right. And you talked a little bit about for the first time.
Right.
Can we dig into, let's go to the second time. What happened there? And I want to hear about the whole experience and what that was like.
Sure, absolutely. So this was in my mid-20s, a couple years after the first near-death experience. And at the time, I was commuting from Wappingers Falls into the city for work, a 2-hour one-way commute. So that was a lot of fun. But that particular morning, for a few days, I had been dealing with like a sinus infection, and I was on some medication. I was a little under the weather. And but as I started, walking a few blocks to my office, I started to get like really sweaty and clammy, and I felt out of breath. And it was weird because it was March, right? So it's cool and brisk. And I was like, oh, what's going on? So I take my jacket off, I tie it around my waist, and I'm walking to the office. But by the time I get there, I sit down in my chair and I'm sweating and my heart is racing and I feel like I'm going to pass out. And my coworker, comes and looks at me and she's like, oh, good morning. Oh, wow, you look awful. And I said, oh my God, I don't feel good. I feel like I'm going to pass out. So she ran in, got the manager, and he came and took a one look at me and said, we need to get her, to a hospital. And luckily, he had like car service on call because, as you probably know, Midtown Manhattan morning traffic, probably not the best time to try to get to a hospital. And, yeah. So luckily, he had a driver right there ready for me. And they literally wheeled me out on my office chair, out to the front door, put me in the back of the car, and off I went to the hospital. And I knew it wasn't good. And I just remember, in the back seat of the car sweating, and my heart was like ba-boom, ba-boom. It was just felt like it was going to leap out of my chest. And I reached into my pocketbook. I had a napkin there from when I had grabbed my breakfast in the morning. And I wrote with a lipstick, tell my parents I love them, and put their phone number down, right? And I handed it to my coworker because I didn't think I was going to make it. I knew something was really, bad. So I remember getting, to the hospital, and then, the personnel came in, put me on a stretcher, wheeled me in. I'm in this room, all the beeping noises, emergency personnel around me. And then the next thing you know is I see myself floating out of my body, like to the ceiling. And I could see all the doctors and personnel working on me. And I'm on the stretcher and, I'm hearing all the noise and all this, frantic motions going on and, the IV being put in my arm. And the next thing you know is I see the doctor grab the defibrillator paddles and he's, pushing on me, pushing on my chest. And I can see my body like jumping, off the table. I look like a rag doll. And I flatlined. And then at that moment, all of a sudden, I was no longer on the ceiling, but I was in, the proverbial tunnel. And the way that I would describe the tunnel is kind of like an MRI. If anybody's have an MRI, kind of think MRI meets Disney World simulation ride. Okay. So it was kind of like I was in the MRI tunnel on my back, feet first, all bright light, felt like a small space. I wasn't afraid. I was actually felt like I was going home. I was looking forward to this. I was getting excited. And I felt safe. And all the while that I'm in this tunnel, I hear this white noise vibration sound, going on, this humming. And as I get closer and closer to the end, where I see this very bright light, that humming is getting louder and louder. So, there I am moving. I think I was moving fast but slow at the same time. So again, kind of like that simulation ride experience. And then just as I ended, my feet actually sank into what I call the glow. And it felt like going into jello is the best way I can explain it, right? And my feet sunk in, and at that moment, all of a sudden it was like whoop, and I was back. And so I had touched over briefly, and then, I was in the hospital for a few days. And the doctors, the nurses, nobody could figure out why this young healthy young lady I went into ventricular cardiac arrest is what I was told, and nobody had any medical explanation for me. So they ran some tests. They even did tests to try to get my heart to repeat that fast rhythm, right, to try to get it to go into another VTAC, but nothing happened. I was fine. So I got discharged. I went home. And again, I still thought at this point that I had a cool dream because, again, I didn't know what near-death experiences were. Nobody talked about it really in this early time, right? And interestingly enough, it wasn't until several years later, over 10 years later, by chance, I just happened to be scrolling through the internet and I found actually what was the cause of my attack. It was a medication that I was taking for allergies that when mixed with erythromycin, which I was taking for my, head cold infection, caused irregular heartbeats and even
Oh my
fatality.
gosh.
Yeah, and it was taken off the market. The FDA took it off the market. Yeah.
10 years later that got
10
figured
years
out.
later. Yeah, yeah,
Um, Lots of questions here. Um,
yeah.
when you were in the hospital and coherent, maybe just before you felt like you floated, were you very scared?
I wasn't scared because I was scared right up going into the hospital, but I was almost like on the verge of passing out. So I was really starting to like lose consciousness, before I flatlined. So I was so out of it that I didn't have the emotions to be scared, if that makes sense.
Did it feel like you were disconnected from
Right,
life?
exactly.
Okay. Um, Pivot back for just a split second. The first time you had a near-death experience, what was the cause of that again?
The first time was anaphylaxis, another allergic reaction to medication. Yeah, me and medication don't mix.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Um, and when this happened the second time, and maybe even the first time, did you see the white light? Everybody, most everybody, when they have a near-death experience, they describe that. As a matter
Yeah.
of fact, somebody wanted me to work with them on a documentary. They were going to document near-death experiences. And in some research leading up to the documentary, which hasn't, deployed yet,
Mhm.
but the baseline is everybody says the same thing. That was just researching for this. So,
Right.
did you see the white light?
Well, sure. In my first one, I was in a big white room. Everything was white and bright. The being that put the book on my lap to look at my life, where I had the life review, it was just all illuminated white. That's all you could see, glowing white, like the whitest white you could ever imagine. And this time in the tunnel was complete. light, and but at the end it was even brighter where I was going. I could just see it. It was like pulsing is the way I would describe it, the light coming from the end of the tunnel.
I have to share something unrelated to this right now with you,
Sure.
but most anytime I've been engaged with a psychic medium in radio, TV, podcast, whatever it is, usually something gets a little like wonky, technically. And I
Mhm.
believe it's because there's a lot of energy.
Yeah.
The two times that you put up your hands and you were going like this, and that's a way to send energy,
Yes.
the Wi-Fi connection hiccuped a few times.
Yeah, I've been told that before. Yeah,
I'm
I've
not even
been.
kidding.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
There's
yeah,
been other times where I've, hanging with a psychic or whatever, and she's wearing
yeah,
headphones on the radio, and then all of a sudden the headphones just disintegrated. The pieces just fell off. I'm not even kidding. And it
yeah.
was a fairly new pair of headphones. Just saying. Anyway, back to the situation. I've often heard this described as well, an overwhelming feeling of love. Like you just, I'm good here, people. I don't have to come back. Did you feel that?
Absolutely. I was excited when I was in that tunnel. It was like I said, it's hard to explain, but I felt like I was going home. It's like I knew wherever I was going to, I belonged there. I knew that I was loved. I knew that I was safe. I could feel the joy. I was getting excited as I was getting closer and closer to the end. So, and when my feet touched in that, into that, what I call the glow, like jello, I just felt through my body that immense love and the light that was coming from that. It was really incredible.
Now, when this happened to you the first and second time, you were younger. And
Yes.
at that time, did you know that you had this gift of being a psychic medium? Did you feel like, yeah, I'm a little bit different. I got a little intuition going on here.
Yeah.
But you weren't practicing, and that really wasn't part of your. You weren't even thinking that at that time.
Correct. So, as I mentioned, I saw and heard spirit at a young age. I don't know how much we went into that, when I was 4.
Hmm.
Then I forgot. And I believe, or I know, that's why I had these near-death experiences, because a lot of people that talk about near-death experiences always talk about all the people they saw on the other side, family, right? So I didn't see any of that. One of the reasons is because I didn't really lose anybody close to me that I knew at the time. And I think that's part of the reason. But for me, these near-death experiences were solely no pun intended there, to wake me up. Because with the first one, I started having those sleep paralysis, episodes where I was hearing, you need to raise yourself up. You need to raise yourself up, meaning my vibration. They wanted me to remember who I was and connect with the other side and do this work and work with the bereaved. But I had totally forgot. So, of course, the first near-death experience, the message went unheard, or, I didn't understand it. So here comes near-death experience number 2. And what happened shortly after, I went back to work a couple of weeks later. But what was happening now to me as I sat on the train commuting, or if I took a subway or a bus, as I sat next to people, I started hearing names again, like I did, hearing when I was a child. And then every once in a while, I'd see like a little image or a vision. So of course, I'm like, well, what's going on with me? And after this happened, for a bit, I was like, I have to start asking questions. So, of course, I didn't want to come off like a real, weirdo, approaching people like, oh, I'm hearing voices in my head, right? Because that's probably not going to go over too well. So, I would say to whoever I was sitting next to, it was like, oh, you look familiar. Is your name Frank? Just kind of, and they're like, no, but that's my father's name and he's passed. And I was like, oh, and this would happen. I'd say the name and they'd say, that person's passed, that's person passed. Or I'd see an image and they'd say, oh, that's my family's restaurant. Oh, that's the name of the street I live on. So like these things were happening. And I'm like, well, what is going on here? Maybe a few weeks or so after this second NDE,
ND. I've never heard that. The ND.
near death experience, NDE.
Yep.
Um, I found myself one day on my lunch hour, and of course, you know the city, right? Everybody's on a schedule. Typically, if you work in a building, you go two or three places within a 1 or 2 block radius, so you can get your food and hurry up and get back, right?
Yep.
So this was my normal routine. But then one day, all of a sudden, I just walked in a different direction. And I came across a brownstone building with a big sign in the front that said psychic. Okay. So I looked up and I'm like, now again, I don't really know a lot about this. I went in and I asked the gentleman, at the front desk, well, what goes on here? What is this place? And he said, oh, people tell your fortune. They predict the future here. So I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this. So, I paid, it was like $10, $15 at the time. And I went and got a reading. And so this lady got the tarot cards and, she was putting them down. I can tell you it was a bunch of generic stuff, nothing, earth shattering, but I didn't know any better at the time.
Hmm.
But I was fascinated. And something within me, something deep in my soul connected, on a soul level, like somehow this belongs to me, right? This is part of me. So in 1991, after going like, a couple times, a month for readings, I bought my first deck of tarot cards from this establishment. And so I thought to myself, I'm pretty intelligent. I have, I can read, 6 books like this big in about 2 hours, and I retain everything. Like I said, I sailed through school, right? How hard can this be, right? The tarot cards come with this little booklet, this card means this, anybody could do that, right? You just put the card down and you say the corresponding meaning, right? Thinking simple. So I thought, let me do this. Maybe somehow this will answer some questions about the things that were happening to me. So I get home, I read the little explanation. I read it once, I read it twice, I read it 3 times. It resonates with me. I can't remember anything, which is highly unusual for me. And it doesn't feel right. So I take those cards, frustrated, and I put them in the bottom of my closet in this box that I had a container for, those odds and ends that you may never visit again. That's where
Hmm.
I didn't have the heart to throw them out. But I'm a true Gemini to my nature. If
Oh,
it
I'm
does
not even surprised that you said that, by the way.
yeah,
Just
now I'm
saying.
like a triple Gemini, I think. So, if you don't hold my attention more than 5 minutes, I'm done. So that's kind of what happened with the cards. And the reason is I was not ready. I had a lot of soul evolution to do. I was getting there. I was touching upon it. I knew this was a part, but I did not have it yet in my soul and my surroundings, my circumstances to be open enough to do this type of work. And I think Spirit knew that. They're like, okay, we're trying to put you on the path. Now you've got work to do. And for the next 10 years, I did the work.
Wow. Did you feel at that moment that it was pulling you? It was pulling you. And then did you get very discouraged with the cards at that time and just like, whatever.
I did. I
Hmm.
was definitely pulling me, and I continued to go for readings even after that. But I was
Wow.
like, this isn't right for me. It didn't feel right to read the the meaning and just say that. I didn't feel the emotional connection to it, and therefore it didn't resonate. And I know now, because there's another story behind that follows the third near-death experience. I was never meant to know the meanings of the cards. I can tell you, I read those same deck of cards, the exact original deck that I bought in 1991 today, and I still do not know the meanings of the cards. So I was always meant to use my pure intuition and work with my team of light on the other side to get the information, not look at a book meaning, and no disrespect to anybody that does that, but that's not what was meant for me.
Obviously, I'm not a psychic, but I have to agree with you in some regards. I've tried tarot cards. I get bored. Well, let me go back to the book and figure it out. So I wound up getting oracle cards, and they're
Mhm.
technically angel cards. I
Right.
think Kyle Gray is the
Yes.
the
Yes.
guy behind it. And I just do it for fun. I'll ask questions, and maybe for another time you can guide us through the card
Sure.
pull, if you will, and how that
Right.
how that works. But they're very simple, so I don't have to decipher them. I can get a little something from them. Um, Amazing. Tell me about your book.
Okay, so my book, oh, see, now I didn't know you were gonna, well, I did kind of know, but I don't have it with me now.
I know last time you did, I guess.
Yeah, so I'll put it up next time. But it's called You Are So Beautiful, a unique perspective into the soul's quest for its destiny. And what I wanted to do, I've always wanted to write my story and tell about how I came into my spiritual gifts and the challenges that I had with, making those life, positive corrections, if you will, and raising my vibration and overcoming, obstacles, everyday life obstacles, taking care of kids, raising a family, taking care of parents, financial, situations. That prevented me from doing this work full time, right? So I tell my story, but I didn't want to write just my story. I wanted to write a book that would be inspirational to others and help them understand what their true purpose is. Because I'm one of the very, I think, few fortunate people that know what my life purpose is, why I was put on this earth in this lifetime, in this body, in this situation, right? And for that, I'm grateful. I feel, privileged to do the kind of work that I was meant to do. But so when I was thinking about writing my book, I had a another medium colleague of mine, Laura Lynn Jackson. You've probably heard of her. She wrote the book Signs and the Light Between Us. So she's a colleague from the Forever Family Foundation. And I met her a few years ago at a grief retreat. And we decided to exchange readings at one point, right? That's what mediums do.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't even know
So
that.
yeah, so a few months after that, she did my reading, and in the reading, she talked about me writing this book. Now, I never told her I was writing a book, but she also told me that I would get a download. I would be very supported by the spirit world in this book, and I would get a download while I was on a ship. And also, what she didn't know is I was leaving for a cruise 2 weeks later. So, sure enough, it was my intention. I brought my notebook and pen because I'm old fashioned. I was going to, start writing my book on my vacation where I could relax out on the sea and all that serenity, right? Good energy. Um, and sure enough, the second day into the cruise, I'm out there early morning because I'm an early riser and I'm all by myself out on the deck, quiet, serene, just laying there. And all of a sudden, chatter going on and my spirit team's talking about my book. And what they did is they gave me this information about soul levels, okay? Five different categories that they wanted me to explain how people move through these categories during their life based on their acceptance or their awareness to their soul's true purpose, okay? So what I did is I took those five categories, I explained the characteristics of each category, why you're in it, okay? And then I used my life as an example on how I moved through those various soul categories to get to the one category that you come into this world in, which is the clear, right? Your soul comes in with a clear purpose, right? From the time you take your human body. And when the time you leave this, this earth, you should be clear again, knowing what your purpose is. Okay. So I explained the different levels and used my story to show how I had to move through these levels, which I call solitudes, your attitude toward your soul's awareness and purpose.
We are just about out of time. Could we, next time we get together, go through those different five levels?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm at so many questions about that. Like my
Right.
brain is like swelling. Like, what about this? What about that? What about this?
Right.
Um, Amazing, amazing. Further proof that the universe wants us to discover our purpose.
Yes.
Sometimes it takes a different road to show us that.
Right.
Sometimes you're knocking on, if you believe, heaven's door, like you, to figure that out. But wow, thank you for sharing that. Like very unique, inspirational. It makes us all think. Makes us all think
Absolutely.
about all this. How do we connect with you? If somebody wants to get a reading, learn more about your book, buy your book, how do we connect?
Sure. My website is www.meaningfulmessages.info. You can always call or text 941-567-0142. And my email is conniepsychicmedium@gmail.com.
So
So any
cool.
of those ways is fine.
Wonderful having you on here again, Connie, and truly looking forward next time we get together.
Sounds great.
Thanks. We'll
See
be
you
right
next
back.
week.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.